The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Friday, February 7th. Music sounds a little distorted, don't you think? I don't know. Something seems a little distorted. I hope, hopefully, we have a good internet connection and everything's okay. And, well, we'll see. All right. Thanks for joining me. We will, today, we're going to continue kind of a discussion from yesterday on everything that Trump has been doing over the last week or more. We will cover all of that, including all the lawsuits brought against his various executive orders. We'll summarize all that. Ian says there were like 3 versions of this stream. Hard to figure out which one to join. It's this one. Sorry. Hopefully all the others are dead, so I'll go afterwards and delete them. Yeah, a little bit of technical problems between me and YouTube. All right. So we'll cover Trump's various executive orders. We'll cover all that issues. We'll also talk about a new a bill proposed in Congress regarding credit cards. We'll talk about that. And some good news about pronouns. Good news, I think, about AI spend. And finally, some really good news about CRISPR. Some good news today. Some good news. And maybe, and as you know, this show is funded by listeners, watchers like you. And one of the ways you can support the show is through the Super Chat. And of course, the Super Chat is also a way in which you get to kind of dictate the show, the topics I cover, because I talk about the things that you want me to talk about by asking me questions or suggesting topics. And you can do that using Super Chat. You can also support the show like Mike just did. Thank you, Mike. By using a sticker. And, of course, you can support the show on a monthly basis on Patreon. All right, let's see. So we'll start with some good news. I mean, I've been very down on a lot of Trump's executive orders. I did praise, I think, the most meaningful of them all and the most positive of them all, which is getting rid of affirmative action. I think that is huge, particularly if you can follow it up with some changes to legislation, which would codify this or make it really expensive, really hard to reverse. So that should be the focus, because DEI and affirmative action and discrimination-based employment, where the government is discriminating, is a huge issue, a crucially important issue. And so it's great. So it's worth investing the time and effort to really undo that and get rid of that permanently. But there's another executive order that I'm pretty excited about. And again, it's not one that violates so much the legislative executive separation of power issue. This one is just another reversal of a Biden executive order. Biden, it turns out, while he was a president, signed an executive order attacking one of my real values, which is plastic straws. I don't know. I love my plastic straws. I love a lot of my plastic stuff. I love plastic generally. And Biden basically did an executive order that was geared to phase out all plastic straws in favor of paper straws. Paper straws. You've drunk through paper straws, right? You know how bad those are. They're awful. They're awful in so many different levels. Anyway, by 2027, Trump is going to be signing, I guess, next week. He's going to end the push for paper straws, and he's going to bring back plastic straws, which I am happy about. And yeah, I mean, this is what's going to make America great again. I mean, right? I mean, this is it. But yes, plastic straws, much better than paper straws. Anything to get rid of those paper straws, I'm happy with. Bamboo straws are not too bad, but the paper ones are just awful. So yes to plastic. All right, let's see. On to, I guess, some more serious executive orders and stuff. One second. Let me just do something here. And all right. So let's talk about some of the issues we talked about yesterday, and just more information coming in today, and just to flesh these things. Let's start with Gaza. As you know, Trump has proposed this idea of emptying Gaza out of all its population permanently or temporarily. It depends who you listen to and who you're reading. But Trump certainly seems to suggest permanently moving the population of Gaza to other countries. He suggested Jordan and Egypt. Jordan and Egypt have both said, no, we don't want them. The world generally is pretty upset by this, although I think the foreign minister of Italy suggested this might be a good solution. So we've got Italy on our side on this one. I generally think this is great if particularly if the Gazans are willing to leave voluntarily. And my guess is you could get potentially hundreds of thousands of them leaving voluntarily, and that would be a good thing. The challenge, of course, is that you've got well over 1 million Palestinians living in Lebanon in refugee camps, held as refugees with no citizenship, no driver's license, no ability to work, and in a permanent refugee status. And if you're going to take these Gazans and put them in Arab countries that are going to keep them as refugees, then you've done nothing. You haven't solved anything. You haven't dealt with the problem. It's just a place where you're just going to foster more terrorists and more hostility towards the West. I think the idea here is to find a way to permanently settle them so that they become residents and citizens of the places that they go to. Anyway, I was reading this morning that according to some of the Israeli newspapers, there are 2 new countries under consideration for the resettlements of Gazans. One is Morocco. I like Morocco a lot because it's far away, right? I mean, the whole idea here is to create big distance between Israel and the Palestinians, and is suggesting Mongolia. Mongolia is good, although I like Mongolia too much and the Mongolian people too much to suggest shipping 2 million Palestinians there. Remember, Mongolia is a country of only 3 million people. Now it has the territory of like the size of Europe, but it only has 3 million people on it. Anyway, Morocco has a peace agreement with Israel. It's not clear what Morocco gets out of this deal. Now, Morocco has a region, the Western Sahara it's called, which is disputed. Most countries in the world don't recognize it as Moroccan. As part of the peace deal with Israel, both Israel and the United States recognized the Western Sahara as part of Morocco, and made the Moroccans very happy, and it was part of why they did the peace deal. So there's some rumors that if they could get even broader international recognition of Western Sahara as part of Morocco, they would actually accept the Palestinians into Morocco. I'm skeptical that Morocco really wants them, and that Morocco would really accept them under any conditions. However, there is another country that seems much more reasonable in terms of ability to settle the Palestinians there. I think in this country, the Palestinians would have to come with a big chunk of cash. Somebody would have to be willing to pay this country, or it's not even a country, this area, big chunks of cash in order to facilitate this deal, and that is Somalia. Primarily, this is doable because really Somalia is not a country. Somalia is an area that has been engaged in civil war for decades now. It is a country divided up by various warlords, where there is a central government in Mogadishu that nobody really pays much attention to. You remember Black Hawk Down, the movie, the book, about America's attempt to bring stability and peace to Somalia, not very successful. Somalia is also a country that's kind of broken up into sub-regions that have some autonomy. Not autonomy because the central government has recognized their autonomy, but autonomy because they basically just ignore the central government. The central government doesn't have the power to enforce any law there. And so you got Mogadishu, you've got the countryside, which is run by basically gangs. I mean, look, let's be clear here. We're talking about Somalia. This is the prototypical anarchist state. This is the country that many anarchists within the libertarian movement have wet dreams about. This is the model country for anarchy, and yes, it is. It indeed is. It works exactly like you'd expect an anarchist country to work. You've got one gang that has controlled the main city, Mogadishu, and one gang is in control of that, and there's no competing governments within their territory. And then you've got the countryside, which is controlled by a variety of different gangs. They each have carved up a different piece of territory, and they constantly fight with each other, and they fight among each other, and then they fight with the Islamist gangs that provide private law, according to David Friedman, an anarchist. He admires their private law. Private law, in this case, is Sharia law. They provide Sharia law to anybody who would like it, volunteers for it. I'm sure the women volunteer for Sharia law to be applied to them. So then you've got the, all these private tribes and gangs of fighting in the rural area and territory shifting constantly. And then you've got a few regions of relative stability. You've got one by the coast. I think it's called Somaliland, which it has some central control over there. And it controls, the access to the Red Sea, to the port. So it has some economic heft there. And then you've got one other area in the northeast, a mountainous area in the northeast of Somalia, which is also relatively autonomous. This is the area where the United States, one of the first acts Trump did, was they bombed some ISIS terrorists in a cave and killed them. And Trump was all, yeah, I'm the tough guy. I got them. I destroyed them. Biden didn't do it. I did it. And all of that. I think some of the kind of pacifist MAGA people were a little shocked by that. But Donald Trump did it, so it must be good. We can't question, can't doubt. You can't let doubt creep into your mind. I mean, if you do, dangerous stuff. I mean, you really don't want that. So we just accept. But anyway, these two, Somaliland and this part of northeast Somalia, both said that they would be happy to accept Gazans into these areas. And as long as they came voluntarily, that is, they were not kicked out. Now, they didn't mention the cash, but I'm telling you, cash has to be involved. First of all, I mean, as bad as Gaza is, I'm actually not sure that anybody wants to go to Somalia. I mean, really. I mean, in Gaza, there's a potential of the Saudis and the Qataris building it up again. The Israelis supply it with a steady flow of water. I'm not sure you get that in Somalia. Steady flow of food from international aid organizations. Not sure if you have that guarantee in Somalia. They have internet. They have cell phone connections. I mean, they might have that in Somalia. I probably faster in Israel. Anyway, I'm not sure anybody would go to Somalia unless they had a fat check with them, or unless the United States promised to build vast infrastructure in Somalia for these Palestinians. It would be interesting to know whether the Palestinians who went to Somalia would side with the ISIS, Al-Qaeda gangs, or with those who are trying to fight ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Not clear which side they would side with. But again, Somalia, pretty far away from Israel, although it'll be on the Red Sea, of some strategic importance, but generally not too bad. They could join the pirates. They'd be good at that. Anyway, this is serious. I mean, the Trump administration and certain people within the Israeli government are looking at Somalia as a place to resettle the Gazans once they leave. I think there's a certain detached from reality euphoria right now in Israel, where, this idea that basically was unmentionable until Trump mentioned it, and now is like, whoa, we just found the solution, and America is supporting it. Yeah, life would be so much better in Israel if the Palestinians just disappeared, and maybe we could just resettle them in these other places. I mean, and if America supports it, yeah, I mean, the left in Israel is freaking out, but I think a majority of Israelis would give this plan a thumbs up. Now, again, as I said, I don't see how doable this is. I don't see how it can happen. But and the Saudis have said no, and the Egyptians and Jordanians. But, it's Trump. Trump could negotiate something. I don't know. But there you go. Maybe they go to Somalia. Maybe that's it. And again, far from Israel. That's the criteria. My criteria is far from Israel, preferably 2-3 countries removed from Israel. Iran would be good, right? Iran would be perfect. But anyway, I'll keep you updated. I'll keep you updated with plans for the colonization by America of Gaza, and in 20 years there'll be some leftist in Gaza who will be saying, recognizing the land rights of the Palestinians over the land. How is this ever going to happen? Somebody tell me that this is even, the fact that it's even mentioned is a little bonkers. But as I said, it shifted the Overton window. So now people can talk about it, and Israelis can fantasize about it, and can come up with various ideas about countries they would like to see. I mean, I saw a tweet, which I thought was excellent. They should just relocate to Yemen. I mean, the Houthis love them. The Houthis were willing to go to war for them. It didn't cost them much, but they were willing to go to war for them. They should just relocate them to Yemen. Talking about relocation, one of the big pushes, one of the things in which the American government has shown itself to be unbelievably efficient and effective since Donald Trump took office is with deportations. We are now clean engaged in the ICE is engaged in deporting illegal immigrants, for the most part, out of the country. And the idea is to go after criminals who are illegal immigrants. I mean, generally, shouldn't the government go after criminals anyway? I'm not quite understanding this. Maybe these are people with criminal records, but not criminal yet. They're going to go after these criminals, but also, if while going after the criminals, they encounter other illegals, then they're going to deport them as well. They're going to take them. So they've explicitly said this is not limited to criminals. This is a broad net, which starts with criminals and then gets them ultimately, from ISIS perspective, from Trump's perspective, and from MAGA's perspective, these people are already criminals because they came into the United States illegally, and therefore they'll be wrapped up. So they've been going to businesses where they know, I guess, illegals with criminal backgrounds are present, and they are putting on planes and taking everybody illegal or that they think is illegal and putting them on planes and deporting them to Mexico, I guess, but Guatemala, to Colombia, and to a variety of different countries. One of the things that they are doing, and this I find particularly horrific, and I don't know, just kind of unthinkable. They've set up a camp to house these illegal immigrants who are, I guess, ready for deportation in Guantanamo. Guantanamo, of course, is a section of Cuba which is under American control, has been since, I guess, the Spanish-American War, I think. And, it was, there's a Navy camp there, and they used that to put Al-Qaeda or Islamist terrorist prisoners there during the war in Afghanistan and Iraq, because they didn't want them to fall under the jurisdiction of the United States, because they wanted to have they wanted to be able to hold them without a trial. They wanted to be able to hold them without the rule of law. And you could argue, because they don't fall under the Geneva Convention, because they're not soldiers. They're not criminals. They're terrorists. So they created this separate thing, and they created a whole camp in Guantanamo Bay in order to house them. And I guess, okay, maybe not a bad idea, although badly executed, badly done. And you'd think that after 24 years, 23 and a bit years, they would have processed everybody and put them in front of a judge and actually gone through the process of a rule of law, accusing them of terrorist activities and so on. But they haven't even done that. That's not even been done. These are basically mostly people just in limbo. Now they have released some of them, which is probably pretty horrific, because some of these were real hardened terrorists. Others, they're just keeping it in limbo because they can't get their act together. They can't actually prosecute them. They don't know exactly what they're doing. They're afraid to bring them to American courts, because if they're bringing them to American court, the American court might ask how they know what they know, and they'll have to disclose their, what do they call it? Extraordinary, not torture interrogation methods, right? But not torture. They promise. So they don't want to disclose that. They don't want to disclose sources and spies and things like that. So I understand it's tricky, but 23 years, something's off there. Anyway, now we're going to house illegal immigrants there, and this to me, it just smacks of authoritarianism. What law do these people are now under? Not the laws of the United States, because they don't clearly apply to Guantanamo. It's not clear whether they do or they don't. This is why they kept terrorists there. What have these people done to justify putting them in a hellhole like Guantanamo Bay? What have they done exactly? Now, maybe they have criminal backgrounds, but if they're real criminals, if they're hardened criminals, if you can prove that they're criminals, why aren't they being put in jail in the United States? Why aren't they prosecuted as criminals? If they have some criminal record or they're suspected of being criminal, but their real crime is being illegal immigrants, does the crime of being an illegal immigrants rise to the point of like being a terrorist and being in Guantanamo Bay? This is just ugly, un-American, a disregard for human rights, individual rights. These people have individual rights. They don't lose their individual rights because they cross the border. They don't lose their individual rights because they're not American citizens. Every individual has rights. All men are created equal, and all men are endowed with inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not just Americans, all men. They broke the law, punish them for breaking the law, fine. You don't punish them by breaking the law. Under what law in the United States can you punish somebody for breaking the law by sending him to a hellhole in Cuba? How does that even work? Again, what laws apply? If ICE tortures them on Guantanamo, is that okay because American law doesn't apply? Now, I am against deportation. I am pro the people who came here. particularly if they're not criminals. And if they're criminals, they should all go to jail. And if they're criminals, they should be deported. But not to Guantanamo Bay. Return them to where they came from, or find somewhere that'll take them. But yeah, I find this despicable. But the fact that you cross the border is such a minor issue that you should probably slap them on the wrist, give them a work permit, and keep them in the country. That's what I would do. In other words, the real solution to illegal immigrants in the country is to legalize them, except for the criminals who should go to jail, like all criminals. Guantanamo Bay, extraordinary, just outside of the Constitution, outside of the rule of law. This is what we're getting now with Trump, just a complete disregard for, I think, the law. Now, maybe argue all presidents are like this, but he's unique, definitely unique from this perspective. Some other things that have to do with deportation. This one is really creepy, I think, and really disturbing. So Rubio went to El Salvador, is hopping around Latin America, and in El Salvador he met with Bukele, the president of El Salvador, and basically. Bukele said he would be willing to take in criminals who were being deported, illegal immigrants who were criminals being deported from the United States. And he has these massive prisons that can hold tens of thousands of people in horrific conditions, but they can hold them. And he's willing to add these illegal immigrants who are being deported. Now, again, I mean, if they're criminals, fine. If they're real criminals, are they going to get a trial? Is there going to be any kind of law applied to them before they go to Bukele's jail? Is Bukele going to try them? Are the courts in El Salvador going to try them? Are they going to be tried somewhere by somebody before they're sent into the hellhole of a El Salvador jail? So that's one question I'm curious about. I can't find any evidence one way or the other. We'll probably find out in the months, years to come. But then a broader proposal was made, and this should truly horrify you and me. It certainly does me. Bukele has offered to house American criminals in his jails. Like, he has a lot of capacity. American jails in some places overcrowded. He is willing to take serious criminals, American criminals, and house them in his El Salvadorian jail. I don't even know what to say about this one. Right? I mean, what do you do with that? Anna says, send in the Palestinians to see how he does with them first. I think he is a Palestinian. I'm pretty sure he's Middle Eastern. I'm pretty sure he's Arab. He might even be a Palestinian. Anyway, Bukele, from family that immigrated to El Salvador from there. What do you do with? We've got a rule of law in the United States. We prosecute criminals. We send them to jail for various terms, and our jails have certain standards. You might think they're too soft. I think mostly they're too soft. But those are the standards determined by American law, and we put them in our jails, and they're guided. Those jails are guided by American legal system. These criminals lose most of their rights, but they're still treated with a certain, in a certain way that is consistent with the way we have decided, or the system has decided, our justice system decided to treat criminals in the U.S. Now, you're going to literally send them to a jail outside of the United States? Are these people with life sentences? If their sentences ends, will El Salvador commit to releasing them? In the meantime, will they house them in the same kind of facilities as they are housed in the United States, different ones? What's going to guide the behavior and their treatment in jail? Is it American law? Is it El Salvador law? By what standard? By what right? By what? I don't know. Can the United States just say, you, a citizen, have been prosecuted here in the United States, but we're sending you to the gulag in Siberia? What the hell? Why not? We've got to deal with Putin that for some crimes he's gonna punish you. And maybe, China has some pretty good procedures of death penalty. Maybe we will outsource the death penalty to China. Or Singapore. Singapore is very good with the death penalty. How is this even taken seriously? How can somebody like Rubio really have this proposal affiliated with his name? Another scary aspect of these deportations, maybe not scary for most of you, but scary for I think a lot of people, is that as ICE goes into locations, and maybe the people there speaking Spanish, that is enough of an indication that they must be illegals. But there are many people in the United States who are legal, who are of Hispanic background, whether they immigrated here legally or whether they are naturally born Americans. Take, for example, a population dear to my heart because I live here, and that is Puerto Ricans. Puerto Ricans have American passports. They are American citizens. And indeed, most young Puerto Ricans leave Puerto Rico and go and work in the United States because they can. And it's easy. And quality of life, standard of living for them in the United States is much higher. And yet, a number of businesses have now been raided by ICE where Puerto Ricans who own the business, they have attempted to arrest them. In one case, we're talking about a vet who served in the U.S. Army, Puerto Rican, therefore American citizen, had to bring out his Army papers and prove to ICE that, and they were skeptical. They thought it was a fraud. They questioned him. I mean, imagine being treated that way by law enforcement. I mean, this is horrific. And of course, there are millions and millions and millions of Hispanics in this country who are American citizens. And now they are all suspect. And, if you're Hispanic out there, or if you have dark skin generally, I suggest carrying your passport with you. Can't hurt. Just in case, carry your passport with you. Just put it in your pocket and don't let it go. I mean, that's what we've come to in America. You got to carry around your passport. I don't, because my skin color suggests that I'm not going to be stopped anyway. So I don't have to carry my passport. But you guys who have a darker skin color, you need to carry your passport. God, how did we get to this situation in America, the United States of America? It's truly hard to imagine. All right, deportations, they continue, and it seems like they will only get more aggressive with regard to deportations. Okay, let's dig a little deeper into the USAID, and let me just say, I said this yesterday, I'll say it again, I would be thrilled if USAID is shut, never to be seen again. If generally the attitude towards welfare changed in this country, and maybe welfare programs will be shut, starting with welfare overseas, but also welfare in the United States. Welfare should, I'm against the welfare state. I want them to be shut. I just want them to be shut permanently, and I want them to be shut for the right reasons, and I want it to be shut the right way. We'll talk about that in a minute, about why it's so important to do things the right way. So yeah, get rid of the USAID. I mean, what is MAGA focused on? Well, MAGA is focused on the fact that USAID, funds a bunch of transgender DEI art, or drag brunch, DEI language, and promotion of DEI language. $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland. $1.5 million to advance DEI in Serbia's workplace. Oh my God, in Serbia. DEI. It's pretty funny. Transgender opera in Colombia. Colombia, the country, not Columbia, the university. $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. $7.9 million to teach Sri Lankan journalists how to avoid binary gendered language. Now, I mean, yeah, this is all horrible. Should be stopped immediately. But so should what I'm estimating, and the conservative government, USAID, does as well. I don't know. Maybe give money to anti-abortion clinic programs. Maybe give money to Christian organizations under the guise of something non-Christian. This is why the government should not be handing out money to basically anybody. Anybody. I mean, USAID gave $24 million to the Tides Foundation. The Tides Foundation was behind, for example, Black Lives Matter. But there's a principle here. Once you create a pool of money to help people around the world who are struggling, then who defines what struggle means? Who defines who the money should go to? Well, whoever's in power, whoever the bureaucrats appoint, whoever their staff happens to be, they're going to define these things. And it's inevitable. It's inevitable that no matter how much guidance you give them about what it means to be in trouble, a lot of stuff is going to be funded that's ridiculous. And of course, it's a big pool of money, $60 billion, a lot of money. Some of it's going to be fraud. And a lot of it's just going to be ugly. It's just going to be ugly causes, at least ugly from a particular perspective. Indeed, I mean, Marco Rubio, who wants to close down USAID, has now, he said foreign aid is not charity. We must make sure it's well spent, but it is less than 1% of the budget and critical to national security. This is what he said. That was 2017. So Rubio is a big fan of USAID. In 2022, he said that USAID funding was a key tool to, quote, counter the Chinese Communist Party's expanding global influence. And he pushed Biden to actually expand USAID. Now he's saying USAID is a global charity and, quote, they have basically evolved into an agency that believes that they're not even a U.S. government agency. I don't know what that even means, but now he's all for gung-ho, let's go, let's shut it down. All right. I mean, I'm for shutting it down, but do it for the right reasons. It's a charity. It's a global charity. There's no question. You can't buy people's love. That's not how it works in foreign policy. The United States should govern by example, not by writing checks, except in Gaza. In Gaza, the United States should fund the entire rebuild. I'm kidding. But I guess that's what Trump is saying. USAID is unbelievably corrupt. There's no question about that. And it should be shut down. It should be shut down. But it probably requires an act of Congress. And it probably requires an acceptance of the idea that what it does is fundamentally, not just in these concretes of DEI, is wrong, bad, should stop. And that would require a whole philosophical shift in the way people think about what the U.S. government should and should not be doing. By the way, it would be interesting to see if, as part of all of this activity, the United States government finally gets the point of defunding NPR and PBS. It's only $535 million. I say only because we do have a $7 trillion budget. But the government should not be funding media, any media of any kind. Previous Republican administrations have tried to shut them down, shut funding down, but Congress would never approve it. I think one of Trump's missions in life, if you will, is to get rid of the need for Congress. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with this, and we'll see if they can get rid of NPR and PBS while they're at it, which would be a good thing. Again, I'm hopeful that it will be done in the right way. Here's kind of a cutesy one, cutesy, but indicative of the swamp that Trump's way of doing business is creating, or Elon Musk's way of doing business is indeed creating. So this is one. So the IRS created something called Direct File, where you can go online and file directly with the IRS. You can fill out all the forms on their website and submit it and pay the taxes, and that's done, right? Easy. It doesn't cost a lot. Doesn't cost anything. Hopefully, you know what you're doing when you're filing these taxes, and you don't need an accountant to do it. So I would never do it because I always rely on accountants. But if you don't need an accountant, great way to do it. Doesn't cost you anything. But who doesn't like Direct File? Well, the people at TurboTax certainly don't like Direct File, and I'm sure there are plenty of others who don't like Direct File. And they have lobbied for a long time to get rid of it. They don't want Direct File. They want you to have to go to buy TurboTax, or to go to, what is the tax filing organization that exists out there that helps you fill out your taxes and submits it. It's not very expensive, pretty easy. Anyway, so they lobby, right? Well, as part of what is going on with Doge, Elon Musk has just written that the IRS system of Direct File, the Direct File system, has been deleted. It's gone. According to MAGA, Direct File puts the government in charge of preparing people's tax return for them. No, you still file the taxes. You fill in the information. They just provide you with a form. According to them, Direct File was made by Elizabeth Warren. We don't want that. So it's been deleted. It doesn't exist anymore. You now need to go back to buying TurboTax to fill out your taxes and to submit them. The TurboTax marketing team is thankful to MAGA and to Elon Musk for making the government now more efficient by requiring their services. A new swamp animal you didn't even know existed. Now we have a new swamp animal, tax filers, or filing tax file companies, whatever it's called. All right. Finally, one more example of swamp animals. So Trump wants to place tariffs on graphite imports from China. Now, as you might know, graphite is used in lithium-ion batteries, and it's essential for manufacturing electric vehicles. China dominates export, dominates the production of graphite, and it exports graphite to the United States. But we do have some American graphite producers. And American graphite producers their graphite is expensive. Cost of production, cost of mining in the United States is higher than it is in China. My guess is, I'm just guessing here, primarily because of environmental issues. Instead of reducing the cost for the graphite producers by getting rid of the environmental stuff, instead of that, the American graphite producers are lobbying Trump to raise tariffs. Trump might impose tariffs of up to 920% on Chinese graphite. That's 10x the price. But don't worry, the Chinese will pay for it. I think I explained that once you go over 100%, the Chinese cannot pay for it because then they'd have to give it to you at zero, and at 920%, they'd actually have to give it to you at below cost. They'd have to lose money, a huge amount of money, the entire revenue. Anyway, it's impossible, just mathematically impossible. Now, who do you think is lobbying against these tariffs? Well, Tesla is. Tesla is aggressively lobbying right now in an attempt to block Trump's tariffs on graphite imports from China because they need those graphites for the batteries so that their cars can stay competitive and cheap, relatively cheap. So, with the one threat of a tariff on graphite, you've created two new swamp animals. Tesla, which has as its advocate superhero Elon Musk, who is right there, basically Trump's best friend right now. So you'd think he'd have the upper hand. And at the same time, the American graphite producers, who knew there was such a thing? Swamp animals, anybody? Drying the swamp? Nobody wants to dry the swamp because they need to feed their animals. They need the swamp to exist. They need the swamp to exist. This is why, no matter what Trump does, it's just, it really is horrific. All right, finally, let me just one other issue with Trump's stuff. Then we'll talk about the lawsuits against Trump, the Trump administration, and then we'll go to other issues. Or then I want to make a broader statement about what is going on here. Trump this morning tweeted that CBS should lose its license because it dared to edit, even though the edit was small and none of the edited material, even the edited material was made public before the election, because it edited parts of Kamala Harris's interview with 60 Minutes. Now, 60 Minutes lose its license? It's a private company. It can do what it wants. It should be able to edit an interview. It might be right. It maybe should lose customers. If they said it was unedited, then they lied to us. Okay. But Trump wants to use government because a media company is behaved in a way that he finds objectionable and that he thinks hurts him in some way. Now, for those of you who believe that Trump is pro-free speech, I don't know how you rationalize this one away. Of course, this one among many of the dozens of examples where he's threatened media with prosecution for doing things he doesn't like. So just put it out there. Trump is going after media. I saw another story about going after, yes, there was the Justice Department is looking into a radio station, I think in Denver, who they thought reported on the deportation of migrants in the Denver area, call it, unfairly, irresponsibly, in a biased way. The Justice Department? Speechless. That's what I am. I mean, if that's not a violation of the First Amendment, I don't know what it is. Justice Department is going to tell us what's unbiased. Justice Department is going to tell us what's fair and what's good reporting and what's accurate and what's okay. I guess the threat is, we'll take away your license. This is why governments shouldn't be issuing licenses. They should sell the broadband and leave these companies alone. Ayn Rand had an excellent article in, I think, Capitalism, Not An Ideal, about exactly that issue. When government owns the license, it is an invitation for the government to start intervening in the free speech of these media companies. All right, let's see. Finally, so I counted so far 11. So all of these things that Trump is doing, he's being sued for. Labor unions, American Foreign Services Association have sued Trump. Attempt to, USAID to shut down USAID by, for example, today they announced that they were firing everybody except a few dozen people out of 10,000. So they were firing about 10,000 people from USAID. And arguing, so they've argued it's unconstitutional for the president to eliminate a federal agency approved by Congress. That was filed today. Boston judge on Thursday paused the deadline for over 2 million federal employees to accept a buyout offer. So it extends the buyout offer, really, which I think helps Trump and Musk. So people have more time to consider resigning. But anyway, he's extended a deadline to Monday where he's going to hear arguments. Another judge in Seattle this time extended a pause on Trump's day one executive order rescinding birthright citizenship. So that has not gone into effect. He wrote, quote, "The president cannot change, limit, or qualify this constitutional right via an executive order." Also today, a D.C.-based judge said only 2 Musk-affiliated staffers can access the Treasury Department's payment system on a read-only basis after, again, workers' unions sued the Treasury amid reports Musk's Department of Government Efficiency accessed sensitive records. By the way, one of those people in Dodge who was accessing the records in the Treasury Department resigned this morning because his explicit, really pretty unbelievable explicitly racist tweets were publicized, which forced him to resign. Although I think Musk is arguing he should be reinstated. So racist tweets do not bother Elon Musk. What do you do with Elon Musk? You guys solved this one. I have no idea what to do with Elon Musk, but that is nuts, right? He's completely tolerant of explicit racism. Another judge in Maryland this time blocked Trump's the rescinding of birthright citizenships. We have 2 judges blocking in 2 different lawsuits. Another judge has paused Trump's restrictions on transgender women being incarcerated in women's prisons and federal prisons, providing general, and all of that. So the transgender stuff has been paused by a judge. Another district judge has blocked Trump's memo halting almost all federal assistance, even after the White House claimed it had been rescinded. It's still in the courts, so it's still being reviewed. So let's see, what else do we have here? So we've got all of these kind of on it. In addition to that, you've got a bunch of other lawsuits that haven't been decided yet in any kind of way. Judges have not commented on yet. These have to do with immigration policies, a number of lawsuits around that, around asylum restrictions, around raids on sanctuary cities, immigration officers entering houses of worship. There's a lawsuit around that, restricting rights to immigration-related groups to represent the immigrants. That is, the lawsuits around that. There are lawsuits around the transgender stuff. There are lawsuits around DI. Anyway, pretty much everything that Trump has done has resulted in a lawsuit somewhere. Many of these lawsuits, I believe, are going to make it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is going to be incredibly busy in really clarifying and defining the boundaries of course, the whole impounding thing. Can the executive branch unilaterally stop payment that has been approved by Congress? That is going to make it, I think, to the Supreme Court. There's a bunch of these that are going to make it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, I think, in the next couple of terms is going to be devoted a lot of its attention to helping redefine or reestablish the role of the different branches of government. So we might see in the next couple of years some of the most important Supreme Court decisions we've maybe ever seen in American history. We'll see the courts defining for a long time the relationship between the executive branch and the legislature. We'll also probably give Trump opportunities to basically ignore the Supreme Court and create a constitutional crisis. That is going to be interesting. In other words, these lawsuits, there's a whole string of them, 20, 30 of them, I don't know how many. These are big. These are super important, and how they're dealt with and how they're processed and all of that is going to be really, really important to what happens in the future of the United States. And this brings me to a broader point I want to make, and then we'll go on with not so much communism. Somebody says communism, but more like fascism. If we give the executive branch, for example, an immense amount of power, if we make the legislative branch irrelevant, which is it kind of is making itself, then what we're moving towards is fascism, and this will accelerate that movement dramatically beyond what we would have expected otherwise. Which brings me to a broader point. So a lot of people I saw in the comment sections yesterday say, why are you complaining, Yaron? They're cutting government expenditures. They're shutting down USAID. You want to shut down USAID, and yet you're complaining? Why is it important that it be done, quote, the right way? What's important is that it be done. But that is exactly an authoritarian mentality. That is exactly the mentality that leads us to authoritarianism, to fascism. We have an amazing system of government. I think the best in the world, at least in its founding, in its conception. We have a magnificent constitution. It could be improved. I wish I could get my hands on it to improve it. But it is the best in the world. It is so good of a constitution. The principles on which it founded are so solid and so good. And it for so many things that could go wrong. Not everything, but so many things. That 250 years later, the United States is still a great country. Not as good as it could be. Not as good in some respects as it used to be, but still a great country. Not because we've had great presidents. We haven't. We've had lousy presidents. I mean, people ask me, who's your favorite president of the 20th century? I don't know. Were there any good presidents in the 20th century? Now, I know you guys will jump up with Coolidge. Yeah, Coolidge was good in some stuff and awful on others, like the 1924 immigration law. So it's not because we've had good politicians. Not because we had good presidents. Reagan was, not because we had good presidents. Not because we had good congressmen. Not because we had any good politicians. We didn't. None of them. They're all crap. Crap is nice as compared to what they really are. It's because we have a system of government that withstood the evil that many of these politicians would have wanted to inflict on us. They still got a lot of evil past, sadly. But our legal system has prevented us from descending into a complete authoritarianism. It prevented us from descending into total economic fascism or socialism. It prevented us from descending into poverty and destructiveness we are still the most powerful, richest, basically, country in the world. And that's because of the institutions that we have. The ideas behind the institutions, nobody understands. A culture to justify these institutions doesn't exist anymore. And granted, given that, it's hard to believe these institutions will continue to exist for very long. And that is, of course, the real danger. The ideas to legitimize them don't exist. The culture to legitimize them doesn't exist. Nobody understands them. Nobody believes in them. They won't survive. But they do survive for now, partially because of our Supreme Courts and conservatives in the Supreme Court who harken back and have a deep respect for the Constitution in some form or another. And a president and Congress that basically are willing to accept the court's decisions. But that is the only thing that is keeping this country from being just another European country, just another democracy that descends into hell. Our Constitution prevents that. And the constitutional order, the separation of powers, is key to that. Key to that. So, to me, it's more important that we preserve the role of the judiciary, the role of the executive, and the role of the legislature. Much more important to preserve their role as institutions than it is to shut down USAID. The long-term consequences of USAID are horrible. The long-term consequences of getting rid of the legislature as making decisions about funding government are horrific. The long-term consequences of giving the executive the kind of powers that are implied by Trump's executive orders, horrific. So I stand here to defend the Constitution, to defend the American system of government that has given us this amazing country, with the hope that it can, tug along somehow, limp along somehow, until we can change the culture, until we have better ideas to justify it and to solidify it and to improve it and to return it to its true glory. But until that happens, if we give up on it, we give up on the country. And what Doge is doing and what Trump is doing is basically a massive power grab by the executive to trivialize that legislation. And you could argue they deserve it because they default on their responsibility constantly. Yes, they do. But we will be the victims. We will suffer the consequences. So, it would be great to make Congress great again by forcing them to make the tough decisions, by getting them to cut spending, by getting them to shut down agencies, by getting them to do the work. Not by going around them, ignoring them, basically eviscerating them, and thus eviscerating the American political system. And then when the time comes, and I'll remind you, because I will remind you, when the time comes, and Trump ignores the Supreme Court ruling, we must stand with the Supreme Court, even if it relates to a program we would love to see shut down. Because it's really important, assuming the Supreme Court's ruling rightly, constitutionally, because it's really important that we stand with the system of government that we have. Much more valuable than dismantling any particular program. Any particular program. All right, Troy. Thank you, Troy. Troy just came in with the 500 Australian dollars. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Continued support for the show, you guys. You should all thank Troy, because those of you, it is contributions like Troy's and Troy's consistent contributions that make this show possible, that make this show ongoing. So thank Troy, all of you. All right, one but depressing story, and then we'll get to some better news, I guess. Senators have now introduced a bill to the Senate to cap credit card interest rates. In other words, senators have now introduced a bill that would basically place price controls on credit card interest rates. If you remember, this is something Trump promised. I can't think, I mean, this is one of those really bad ideas. This bill is being proposed by Bernie Sanders. No surprise that a socialist wants to place price controls, usury charges, wants to limit usury, if you will, on credit card companies. And it is co-sponsored by Bernie Sanders' good friend and in economic matters philosophical ally, Josh Hawley. Now, I have been warning you about Josh Hawley for years and years and years. And now he's teaming up with Bernie Sanders to introduce a bill to cap credit card interest rates at 10%. You will get a lot of Democrats voting for this, and you will get a few Republicans voting for this, and it might actually make 60 votes. And since President Trump promised this, he might actually vote for it. Now, note that they're framing this as a bill that would help working class Americans struggling to pay their bills. But what it would actually do is prevent working class Americans from getting a credit card. If all credit cards can charge is 10%, then credit cards will only be issued to people who represent a very low risk of non-payment. And of course, those of us like me who pay off my credit cards every month before any interest is charged, I will always get a credit card. I will have no problem getting a credit card. But those of you who carry balances and who are, according to the banks, risky, at the risk of not paying their balances off, you will have a hard time getting a credit card. There is no way you can cap an interest rate without there being negative, horrific consequences. Not to the credit card companies, some to the credit card companies, but primarily to consumers, to the users of credit card. This is bipartisanship these days. Economic fascism is bipartisan these days. Bipartisan completely. All right, let's do a few positive news stories. One is about pronouns. It's about peak woke. We've talked about peak woke before. It turns out that pronouns are disappearing, are being dropped. The he, she, they, she, what, I don't even know what they were. All the pronouns are gone, right? The mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who used to report his pronouns, gone. No, his bio doesn't have them anymore. Pete, whose family name I can never pronounce, who was the transportation secretary under Biden and a mayor, if you remember, he had pronouns on his bio. They're gone. This is of the left, both Sadiq and Pete. And shockingly, you won't believe this one. You just won't believe this one. You always say she's not smart. AOC is no longer disclosing her pronouns. Maybe because she wants to have them changed. I don't know. But no longer disclosing her pronouns. Yeah, I mean, it's out. Pronouns are out. They're no longer sexy. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. Am I allowed to say sexy about pronouns? I don't know. No longer acceptable. That kind of leftism, not a winning strategy at the polls. So the left is learning. The left is learning. Somebody should learn. And with regard to peak woke, peak craziness, peak wackiness, peak insanity, Ibram X. Kendi. You remember Ibram X. Kendi? I did a whole show on him in 2020 on his anti-racism book. Anti-racism, which was actually racist. He was a celebrity. He was a superstar. He was the rising star. He got this massive, amount of money to open a center at Boston University, where he was going to research systemic racism and going to solve all the racist problems of the world. Well, his center has just been shut down. Now, this is after about a year of questions about where all the money went. And you would think, though, that once Trump won, systemic racism would just go through the roof. And a need for this center would be even greater. And yet, there it is. It's gone. No more pronouns, and no more Kendi. At least no more Kendi's center. I'm sure he'll still be around. If you miss him, he will be there. But this suggests, I think, the kind of collapse, maybe even dismantling by certain people, of kind of the far left institutional kind of agenda. It'll be interesting to see if a new left can rise. If you look at the people who are vying to be the heads of the Democratic Party, it doesn't look like it. They all look like old far left. But I think in actual real world out there, they are retrenching. There is a real retrenchment of the wacky left, which is good. It's good. Good riddance to Kendi. He was an awful, horrific force in our world. All right, some news from the AI front. You know, when this Chinese AI company, AI product came out, there was a lot of talk, DeepSeek, there was a lot of talk about maybe we don't have to invest a lot of money in infrastructure. I talked about it. Maybe we don't need all these massive server farms where you have thousands, tens of thousands of NVIDIA chips, and you also have huge amounts of electricity being used for. Maybe we don't need all this infrastructure. Well, I mean, follow the money, and the money suggests that nobody believes that. Right now, our big tech companies are seeing a massive investment in infrastructure. Amazon has just announced $100 billion plus investment in infrastructure this year in 2025. $100 billion plus. That's a lot of money. Microsoft, Alphabet, Meta have also reported massive capital expenditures. In total, they spent $246 in 2024 billion, $151 billion in 2023 combined with Amazon. And the forecast is over $320 billion in 2025. They're building data centers with specialized clusters of specialized chips, and all to compete for the next generation of AI, in spite of the fact, maybe, of the release of DeepSeek, kind of a cheaper version. So they're not stopping the massive capital expenditures. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, we're gonna have to talk more about AI, but the world is going to be changing in, I think, pretty dramatic ways for the positive in the next 5 years. As some of these new data centers come on board, as new models get created, as new models get released, this is going to be super exciting. It's going to be super amazing what you'll be able to do with AI. A lot of your jobs will be gone, by the way. So you should think about it. You should plan for it. You should anticipate. Plan. Figure out alternatives. Okay, finally, feel-good story, positive story. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I get very excited about CRISPR technology. is an amazing technology. I read a book about Jennifer Doudna, one of the creators, inventors of the CRISPR technology. CRISPR is a technology to edit genes. It goes into your cells and literally edits your DNA. And this has the potential to revolutionize medicine. Certainly, diseases that have their origins in genes, are curable now potentially, right? It still needs a lot of work, and they need to figure out which genes and how to do it. But CRISPR allows that. Now, one problem with CRISPR has always been that CRISPR is just a big molecule, right? CRISPR is a molecule that enters the cell and does the work. But it's unwieldy. It's got too big, and it can't enter certain of the body's tissues. It can't actually enter certain cells and do the slicing and dicing of the DNA that it is required to do. Now, I can only imagine what MAGA thinks of CRISPR, but I'd rather not imagine. Let's pretend they don't know it exists. Let's hope they don't know it exists, because this isn't mRNA. This is literally going in and changing your DNA. Oh my God. So exciting. And for MAGA and RFK and all of those people, so scary. Oh my God. They're changing my genes. Don't do that. Anyway, it's too big. But there's a company, what's it called? Oh, I don't see the name of the company. Anyway, there's a company in California that was co-founded by Jennifer Doudna. Let's hope this company makes a lot of money and she becomes rich. That's good. By the way, she won a Nobel Prize in 2020 in biology for developing CRISPR. That they have figured out how to make CRISPR small. They're calling it mini CRISPR. They have managed to successfully get mini CRISPR into muscle cells in mice and monkeys, where it efficiently and effectively edited a gene linked to neuromuscular disorders. This is amazing work. It now, of course, continues to open up all human cells potentially to this gene editing technology. It was, a truly another piece of this CRISPR puzzle, CRISPR technology that is truly amazing, truly exciting, and suggests that in spite of the fact that there are people out there, a lot of people out there, trying to wreck this world, trying to make it worse, not better, there are more people, many of them in Silicon Valley, in labs across the country, in biotech and in technology and in other fields, trying to make the world a better place. And all of us have this opportunity to benefit enormously from it if the people trying to wreck it all don't manage to wreck these people. So, yep. Apollo has a whole list of things that he would like to use CRISPR for in terms of editing his DNA. There's a bunch of genes he would like changed. Yeah. Yep. All right. That is the news for Friday, February 7th. Thank you all for joining. Tomorrow, I'll be doing a show, probably 2 p.m. East Coast time. Not sure yet what the topic is going to be, but we will. It will be related to. It will be related to. It will be something positive. Put it that way. Something positive. Some kind of rules for life show. I haven't done a positive one in a while, and we need some positivity given how negative all the news is. So we'll do a positive show tomorrow, 2 p.m. East Coast time. All right. Also, there will be a members-only show. Members-only show on Sunday at 1 p.m. East Coast time, with John Bobbin. We'll be talking about all things exercise, diet, health, more broadly, health. Medicine 3.0, as Atia calls it. So please join us on Sunday, also a positive show. Members only, so you have to become a member. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to gift a bunch of you membership. Right? I'm going to give. I can't determine who it is, so it is random. So 5 of you have now become members, so you can participate, actually join the show on Sunday with John, and yeah, you might even be able to. You might, maybe should, because you'll be there, be able to contribute. Yeah, Robin got a gift. Mike did. Sylvanos did. Ian did. Wow, a bunch of my regulars. James did. So a bunch of the regulars got gifted memberships. This is great. This is great. So I hope to see you guys on Sunday. If you missed the show on Sunday, you will still be able to see it on the members only channel, right? After the fact. After the fact, right? So don't worry if you miss it Sunday, you'll still be able to watch it later. The nice thing about being there on Sunday is you can ask Super Chat questions. Now I see Jeremy just gifted 10 memberships, and Lucinda gifted another 5 memberships. I think incredibly valuable being on the Yaron Brook Show, listening to Yaron Brook Show today, because I'm going to go ahead and gift another 5. So let's gift another 5. Let's do this. Let's get a bunch of people to become members just before we do a members only show, and hopefully they will stick. Hopefully they will stick. Even Boz became a member. Look at that. All right. This is a good gift membership gifting thing. Anyway, few things to remind you. There is a conference in Austin, Texas, on February 28th to March 2nd. Objectives Conference. Amazing speakers. Greg Solomieri, Ben Baer, Mike Mazza. I'm not sure who else will be there. Maybe Tara Smith, maybe others. 3-day conference. You can attend. You can buy a ticket. To do that, go to aynrand.org/start here. It's going to be a pretty intense conference geared towards deepening your understanding of Ayn Rand's philosophy. You'll meet ARU faculty. You will meet a bunch of ARU students who are currently students. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So don't forget to sign up. aynrand.org/start here for the Austin conference. Ayn Rand conference in Austin coming up February 28th to March 2nd. Do that now. We also have a sponsorship from Alex Epstein. Alex Epstein, the preeminent voice in the world today on all issues related to fossil fuels, energy, climate change, environmentalism. Knows a lot about what to expect from the Trump administration coming up here. You can sign up for a Substack, get invaluable information about these topics. And importantly, because he does these talking points, you can get tools that will improve your communication skills in debating, arguing, discussing these issues, which I sure come up in conversations with friends and family and professors maybe all the time. Alex is a great, great resource for all of that. All right, and finally, if you want to support the show, then you can do a few things. You can subscribe right now. We're this close, like 9 people away from getting to 39,000 subscribers. So just click the subscribe button and help us get to 39,000. It helps. Every subscription helps. It helps with the algorithm. It helps with YouTube. And this is a necessary milestone on the way to getting to 50,000, which is a necessary milestone on the way to getting to 100,000, which is where I'm hoping we can get to in the years to come. 50,000 maybe sooner, but 100,000 in the years to come. So help me get to 40. By helping me get to 39, I need 9 subscribers today. What the hell? Make it today. You can also support the Yaron Brook Show. You can support the Yaron Brook Show on a monthly basis by going to Patreon and just searching for the Yaron Brook Show. And you can make a contribution there, $2 a month, $10 a month, $500 a month, $1,000 a month, however you want, because of the value the show provides you and whatever you can afford, the combination of afford and value. Value for value. You obviously get something from the show, you're listening to it. Payback for the value you get by becoming a monthly subscriber on PayPal or Patreon. Patreon.com, Yaron Brook Show. All right. Let's go to the super chat. We've got a bunch. I need to thank all the stickers. We've got Mr. W. Brown. We have obviously got Troy. Thank you, Troy, who got us to where we are now. So we're very close to our 3-hour goal, but only because of Troy. Well, not only, and the other super chat. Nevfell, thank you, Nevfell. Really appreciate that. John, who did a $50 sticker. Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. And let's see, Mary Aline, thank you. And who else? Mike Dial. Thank you, Mike. Really appreciate it. So thank you to all of you for doing it. We're $126 short of our 3-hour goal. I'm not sure we'll make it into the 3rd hour, depending on how many questions roll in the next 30 minutes. But we certainly will make the 2-hour. But it would be great to get an extra $126 in, particularly if you ask good questions, and then we'll cover your questions. Oh, there we go. Silvana just came in and asked a $100 question, so that'll get us a lot closer to our goal. That probably allow us to reach it. All right, let's start with Savannah, since it's a $100 question. As a hypothetical, if you were in charge of integrating a belligerent population of people with religious motivations, how would you do it? Do they have rights as long as they don't do any crime? I mean, so I'm assuming we've inherited a bunch of immigrants. Let's say I become in charge of Germany or in charge of a portion of Europe where there is a belligerent population of people, very religious, and let's assume I can't kick them out. And so how do I integrate them into the culture? And I think the answer is pretty simple, really. I mean, it's got 3. I'm making this up, so it might turn out to be more than 3, but I think it has 3 components. 1, rule of law. The law applies to them fully. They don't get any, softer treatment because they come from barbaric culture, because their religious demands otherwise, because they have dark skin, whatever that happens to be. The rule of law applies to them fully. They rape, they go to jail. In my view, violent rape, you throw away the keys. I mean, I don't want to ever see you out. You apply these rape gangs of Pakistanis in England. They're arrested, they're prosecuted. As soon as rumors about this came out, it should have been investigated. The people associated with it should have been imprisoned. They should have been tried and imprisoned for a long time. Rule of law. There's plenty of laws against rape, against grooming in England. Apply them. Same in Germany. Same in, you steal, whatever you do. You beat your wife. Here's a good one. You beat your wife, which is common in a lot of these communities. Violence against women. I don't care that in your country that was okay. I don't care that your religion allows for it and actually instructs you on how to do it. You go to jail. You get prosecuted for the full extent of the law. So that's 1. The rule of law applies fully. Fully. Rule number 2. No welfare. No free apartments. No free housing. No checks. No food stamps. No welfare. Which means you have to go to work. Work is the best way to assimilate people. Work requires people to communicate. It requires people to provide customer service if it's customer facing. It requires people to be productive. Work requires people to live up to their new culture, right? The reality is that when you come from a crazy religious primitive culture, work is not like that. It's unproductive. There's no customer service. But if you come to America or to Europe, you better work. And you better work to the standards of the new culture. So work is an important, crucial mechanism by which we assimilate people. Countries that have allowed the immigrant populations not to work and to receive benefits instead are suffering the consequences. France, Sweden, Germany. No such thing as welfare immigrants. Zero that out. Third, advocate in every opportunity possible, every speech, every lecture, everywhere possible, for the values and virtues of the new culture. Make it clear to the immigrants that they're expected to assimilate. Make it clear to the immigrants that you believe that their culture is primitive, barbaric, and inferior. They are not necessarily primitive, barbaric, and inferior, but their culture is. In order for them not to be that, they must adopt a new culture. They must assimilate into the new culture. So demand from them assimilation, not legally, but verbally. Use the bully pulpit, very powerful tool, to demand assimilation, to make clear the superiority of your own set of ideas, your own cultural ideas over theirs. Recognize barbarity when you see it and call it out. All of that, you know, is what you need to do. So those are the things I would do. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, stop apologizing for the West. Stop apologizing to immigrants. Stop assuming you stop feeling guilty towards them. Be proud of your own culture. That is the number one assimilating tool. So that's what I would do. But yeah, I mean, they have rights. I also would say, you're not citizens. Maybe your kids are citizens, but you're not. For 20 years, or maybe for life. I don't care. Citizenship is overrated. So, you know, you deny them citizenship. Certainly you deny citizenship without some kind of test that shows that they have assimilated. To be citizens, they have to be assimilated. Okay, Michael. Michael says, I spoke to someone who works as an administrator for Medicaid, and they told me they know there's a lot of fraud, but it's tolerated so long as people who need the resources are getting access to them. Such a defeatist, altruistic attitude. Yes, absolutely. And one thing I do believe Doge will find is a lot of fraud, because there's a ton of fraud in Medicaid, a ton of fraud in Medicare, but particularly in Medicaid. You know, 95 million Americans on Medicaid? 95 million Americans receive health care funding from the government, which is absurd, nutty, crazy. And people pretend we have a free market in healthcare. So, yeah, I mean, I hope they find fraud and stuff, but the fact is that if you really want to do something, and if you really want to make a real dent and really impact the budget, it's not about fraud. It's about rethinking the program from scratch. Really rethinking the meaning of the program, whether you need it or not, and maybe restructuring in a way that reduces people's dependence on it and reduces its costs. I like voucherizing as many of these programs as possible, giving people, in a sense, medical saving accounts with money in them that they can then buy insurance with, and creating an insurance market for poor people. That also requires deregulating insurance, and I talked about that in my show on how to privatize the American healthcare system. But yes, no question, a lot of fraud. There's a lot of fraud throughout government, but it's not enough to change the projection of government deficits and basically U.S. bankruptcy, the equivalent of bankruptcy. So, you've got to get in there and actually do the hard work of figuring out how to restructure these programs so they're less expensive, or restructure them out of existence, which is consistent philosophically, at least, with the American values, the American founding. Andrew, I'm heading out on vacation. Vacation is important recharging time. There's a lot of work left undone. It's going to be a whirlwind when you get back. So what? You'll manage it. Enjoy vacation without guilt if you earned it. Absolutely. Just go and relax and have a good time. Now, I always feel guilty on vacation because I'm not doing the Yaron Brook show. And I'm a good altruist, and I know how much you depend on me, and I feel bad. No, you really, if you define a period as vacation, then no work, no shows, no work emails. Just try to cut yourself off. Now, I don't know that I've done that in a long time, but try to cut yourself off completely and really relax, and you should have no guilt associated with it. You've earned the vacation. You've earned the vacation. And almost none of us are in positions where the world will truly collapse without our input. So, yeah, have a good time, Andrew. Enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. Robert Nasser, what do you make of the news that there's measurable microplastics in the average person's brain, equivalent to a plastic spoon, resulting in increased risk for pathologies, including cognitive and endocrine disorders? I don't know. It seems a little extravagant. It seems a little, I don't know. It seems there's a lot of hysteria around it. I'm generally suspicious of these kind of claims of something technological that is causing us all to die. But it's possible. I don't know that it's not true. I consume a ton of plastic stuff. So if the average person has a plastic spoon in their brain, I have a knife, fork, and spoon in my brain. I drink a lot of water out of plastic bottles. I don't know. And, we'll see what the evidence really suggests rather than the hypotheses and rather than the panic and hysteria. And how much impact does it have? I mean, it could be that if you live to be 130 years old, this will really cause you cognitive decline. But you're probably not going to live to be 130 years old anyway, so what do you care? So it's issues like that you really have to think through. When is it going to have an impact on me? How big of an impact on me? How serious an impact on me? And so on. Shazbot, there is a new Godzilla museum in Japan. It features a 75-foot replica of Godzilla's head. You can zip line into the gaping mouth. This will probably tip the scale regarding my decision to have a vacation there. Will it tip the scale positively or negatively? Who the hell wants to zip line into Godzilla's mouth? That's great. I mean, it really is. It's fantastic. The Japanese are amazing. And these kind of things are great. And if it entertains Shazbot and entertains a bunch of people, all the power to them. I'm all for that. Fun. fun. If you go to this exhibit. Remind me on a future show, I'll give you the name of this experiential kind of thing. It's not art, but it's kind of cool. And the Japanese are very good at just creating aesthetic experiences and fun stuff. So enjoy Japan and lots of good food. Frank, thank you. $50. Really appreciate that. Reading Isabel Paterson's The God of the Machine, unique perspective on natural government and the absurdities of anarchism as a regression. Also, Hilary Belloc, The Servile State, a provocative and black pill criticism of capitalism and socialism. Interesting. I don't know anything about Hilary Belloc, The Servile State, so I can't comment on that. But, and I'm not sure you need to be black pilled on capitalism, because capitalism, I don't even know what black pilled means. There's so many pills these days. I just want the truth pill. But I don't know that you need a criticism of capitalism, really. You need a criticism of the mixed economy that exists today, but not of capitalism, core capitalism. But yes, Isabel Paterson is a unique thinker, a very influenced, I think had a mutual influence with Ayn Rand. They were friendly for a while. Ayn Rand was a huge fan of The God of the Machine. And yes, a really unique figure in the history of free market thinkers of the 20th century, Isabel Paterson was. And again, I think Isabel Paterson gave Ayn Rand the idea for Atlas Shrugged. Michael, does bullying ever bring out the best in people, make them stronger, more ready to face the world? Sure. It doesn't justify the bullying. But yeah, I think some people rise to the occasion of bullying, learn about themselves, gain confidence in how to deal with a bully, and make it possible for them to be stronger in facing the world. Again, I don't know if I'd encourage bullying in order to achieve that, but yes, I think it definitely does and can. By the way, it reminds me, I guess, that, sometimes a challenging environment can challenge you to achieve great things. The last few nights, my wife and I have rewatched this second time Queen's Gambit. It's a show on Netflix. I mean, I don't know. I think it's an excellent show. It's one of my favorites. I love the actress. She's amazing. But it's just a great show about somebody who's had a very challenging upbringing, a very challenging context to her life. Obviously also brilliant at chess in this case, but who does the work, figures it out, makes the choices. It's an incredibly benevolent movie, really benevolent, a little too benevolent towards the Soviet Union, but really benevolent. The other chess players, the competitors, there's no these antagonistic, horrible relationships. They support each other. They help each other when it's meaningful and needed. They're friends, even though they compete. And they celebrate each other's victories. I mean, really, if you want an inspiring, heartwarming, but really smart, really smart show. Beautifully acted by the lead actress, a little stylized in the acting. You should definitely watch this. Queen's Gambit on Netflix. What is it, 6 or 7 episodes? I really enjoyed the show. So highly recommend it. I think it's really good. I don't know if any of you have seen it and what you think. I'd be curious, but highly recommend it. Really oriented towards values. Really oriented towards love, if you will, and the love of doing something and doing something to the best of your ability. And it's not just the lead character. One of the things I like about it, it's not just the lead character who achieves their values, but there's another character who you meet in the first episode and then the last episode, basically, who also achieves values. in spite of the background she comes from. So it's very positive and very heroic. Well, maybe, yeah, I think it is. Overcoming that kind of life is heroic, but really a show about values and sticking to them, and you know, also going through really, really, really rough times. So it's not every episode ends with you smiling. There's some rough things there. Rough things happen. So really recommend it. Really recommend it. Anya Taylor-Joy is the actress. She has these amazing eyes. Oh, just stunning eyes. Stunning eyes. Anyway, highly recommend it. David, is there a way for the legislative to be forced to do its job? At this point, it is becoming a vestigial organ in the government. Sooner or later, it'll be a little more than a nuisance to be shooed away. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. I don't think you can force it. Other than keep voting the bastard out. Keep voting the bastards out. If your congressman doesn't do a job, vote him out, no matter who replaces him. I mean, Congress today has become this basically tribal, completely tribal, right? I talked about this yesterday. Exactly what the Founding Fathers were afraid of. The Founding Fathers talked about they didn't want political parties because they were afraid then that Congress people wouldn't vote as individuals. They would vote as members of a party. And so they were against political parties, even though they immediately started political parties, right, when the country was founded. But, you know, what's happening today is, for example, you can see in the Republican Party right now, very obviously, is whatever Trump wants, Congress is going to give him, or almost everything he wants. And, you know, with RFK, Cassidy clearly doesn't believe, Senator Cassidy from Louisiana, clearly doesn't believe RFK is qualified for the job of Secretary of Health and Human Services, but Trump wants him, so Cassidy would vote with Trump. So what's the point of having Congress if they'll just rubber stamp anything Trump wants? So it's become, because of the nature of the tribal nature of our political parties, it's almost become irrelevant. And what do you call it? A nuisance. Yeah, it's become a nuisance. But of course, if we're going to survive as a free nation, we need Congress to wake up and take its job seriously. I don't know how you do that. Now, these two political parties don't seem to be capable of that. Michael, the national security argument for tariffs makes no sense. If something is a national security threat, then you ban it. You don't tax it. Exactly. Absolutely. I've been saying this for years and years and years and years and years. You don't tax a national security threat. You ban a national security threat. You don't deal with them because they're a national security threat. Thank you, Michael. All right, we got a bunch more questions. We'll go down these, and then we'll call it a day. So, you know, we'll see. We'll probably just enter the third hour. And questions keep rolling in. Michael, pressure can burst a pipe or create a diamond. You get to decide. Yeah. Yeah, although pressure can also do neither. It's hard to create a diamond. Michael, are people who seek power over others the weakest people on earth? Well, it depends what you mean by weakest. They obviously have power over other people. They gain power over people, and they execute that power. Are they low self-esteem? Are they bad people? Yes, but I wouldn't say they're weakest because they actually gain the power over other people, and they enforce that power. They can enforce that power. Michael, it's not like America was this rational, egoistic place before the progressive movement destroyed everything. Altruism and collectivism are always there. Yes, but they were marginalized. The Founding Fathers and the founding documents and the founding of this country marginalized that. And it's why America was such a free country and such a capitalist country. It's the collectivism and altruism were relegated to a very minor role in the life of the country. And the progressives brought it out into the surface and made it dominant, Thoughts on Israeli Ambassador Daniel Danon? I don't really know Danon that well. I mean, he's articulate. He makes the case for Israel. Ambassadors, are tools of their government, so they do what the government tells them. They can't express their personal opinion, so I don't know what he really thinks. I think he's good at his job. I think he communicates well. I think he takes the government's position and argues it well. So I think a good ambassador. Subkaski, what Rand villain would you compare to Musk to? I don't know. I mean, he's not quite Stadler, but he's getting closer. Yeah, I'm not sure. He's such a mixture of virtue and vice that I don't know there's anybody quite like him in Atlas or in the Fountainhead. So I don't know. Mike, do you think the Supreme Court will have the nerve to rule against Trump so many times? Yes, I do. I think it'll be different mixtures of different judges who will be ruling. I don't think it'll be consistent, the same people on different issues. There'll be disagreement. They won't rule against them on everything, not because they'll not have the nerve, but because I think their belief systems are such that they, we saw with the immunity issue that a significant portion of the judges are willing to give the president a lot of leeway. So we'll see how they rule. But I do think they'll knock down a few things. Mary Eileen says, thank you, Troy. Thank you, Mary Eileen, and thank you, Troy, again. David, John Marshall has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. Andrew Jackson, about the then Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Yes, that was an example of a president who just said, I'm going to ignore the Supreme Court. We came back from that. We survived that. But that was in the 19th century when the culture and the country were a lot healthier than they are today. Can we survive it today? I don't know. If Trump does something like that, can we survive it today? I don't know. I really don't. Barry Hoover with $50. Thank you, Barry. Really appreciate that. A $50 sticker. And I might as well also thank Arun for his stickers. And I think other than that, I'm caught up. Emmett says the on allows gifts. Then on? I don't know what that means. I don't know, O-N. Then, O-N, allow gifts. Kim, when does the law become bad enough to the point that you shouldn't follow it? I mean, certainly the legal system as a whole reaches a point where you shouldn't abide by it when it starts violating free speech, on scale when it starts imprisoning political prisoners, when you don't have a meaningful choice in come elections. We haven't quite reached there, but we flirt with it. In terms of a particular law, it has to be important enough for you to violate as to accept the consequences if you're caught. I think that's the standard, right? So you have to assume you'll be caught, and if you're caught, then you're gonna have to suffer consequences. Is it worth it? That's the calculation you have to put together. Generally, you should follow the law to a large extent for two reasons, I think. One is because you don't want to go to jail. You don't want to be fined, the kind of huge fines that are associated with many of these laws. And second, because, not violating laws, ignoring the law, in any kind of public way and systematic way is basically a call for anarchy. Now, again, you might reach a point where, like in the world today, there's so many laws and they're so ridiculous and they're so rights violating that you don't care about the call for anarchy. You just need to survive. And to survive, you have to break the laws. And that could be with regulations, that could be with taxes, that could be with a bunch of different things. But then you have to think about, what if I get caught? How am I going to defend myself? Now, you might not get caught. Hopefully you don't get caught. But, and each one of us has to make that decision for ourselves, I think. Frank, at hearings, RFK made a good point about a 20-year smoker who gets cancer and then is taking from health insurance pool. He has health care is not a right. He said health care is not a right. Well, he didn't say health care is not a right. He was asked directly whether health care is a right, if he believes health care is a right. And he hemmed and hawed, and he said it's not the same as other rights because somebody has to provide it, but he never actually said, I watched that segment, that healthcare is not a right. Right? He bounced around the topic without answering it. He understands the issue well enough to realize that it's different than the right, for example, to be left alone to pursue your own values, to free of coercion. Because healthcare is something that has to be produced, and he implied that. But he didn't actually say it's not a right. He just thought it was a different kind of right, or had different kind of implications. He didn't actually say it was not a right, at least not that I understood, heard. If you have a direct quote from him saying that, let me know. Let me know. And by the way, you don't get taken off of your insurance if you're a 20-year smoker and you get cancer, because today Obamacare has guaranteed you insurance even if you have pre-existing conditions. David, what's the point of King Charles if he is unwilling to force change for known issues? Well, there is no point of King Charles. I'm against the monarchy. I'm against the monarchy in England. I think it's stupid. I think there is no point other than tradition, the grandeur of it. I don't know, whatever the bits get out of it. But yeah, there's no political point. There's zero political point. And it's an irrelevant institution that should be abolished. It costs money. The Brits can't afford it anymore. They never really could afford it, right? It's just stealing money from people. Just get rid of it. Sell it. Privatize it. Rudowns, there's a live chat feature that only allows comments from subscribers. You should look to turn that on. Yeah, I might do some shows where I turn that on. That's a good point. I was going to start doing that. For some shows, only members can make comments. Not all shows, because I still like to have just a random person make comments. But we could have just chats of members by me turning on that feature, and that will also maybe encourage you to become a member. Good point. AE Art. Not sure how to feel about blocking NVIDIA chips from China to slow AI. It encourages them to innovate and raises risks towards Taiwan. Yeah, I mean, it certainly raises risks towards Taiwan. It encourages them to innovate, which is probably good because then we'll benefit from their innovations. So I'm not too worried about that. But it's not just that we're restricting NVIDIA for AI. We're also restricting advanced chips from use in missiles, in defense, in missile defense systems, in all kinds of military technologies. So if there's a chip that clearly has military implications, if it was non-military, it was just AI, non-military AI, then I would say, yeah, there's no justification. There's just no other way. And the reality is that the more authoritarian China becomes, the less innovative it will become. The more authoritarian it becomes, the less innovative it becomes. So I'm less worried about long-term innovation in China because of their authoritarianism. And if they're not authoritarian, then I'm just not worried about China because I don't think a non-authoritarian China would go to war. Esoteric dichotomy. Hey, Yaron, do you donate to charity or do volunteering? If so, what type of cause? Trading is more ideal, but it's hard with those who have so little. I don't volunteer. I have no desire to volunteer and no interest in volunteering. Once in a while, I give a talk on capitalism or something like that in my volunteer status to spread the word, but nothing more than that. I have no interest in volunteering in a soup kitchen. I have no interest in any kind of volunteering, really. My life, my time is just too precious. There's too much to do. There's so many interesting things to do every single minute of time. I'm never bored. Volunteering just doesn't interest me. Just provides me with no values that I see. And I'm not saying that should be your attitude. I'm saying that's mine. I don't donate to any charity. My taxes cover that, right? Redistribution of wealth. If I donate any money, it's to causes I believe in. I don't know. There's a free market think tank here in Puerto Rico. I give them some money, right? So that's the kind of causes I would give money to. I don't provide causes that give money to the poor. I'm doing that through my taxes. Way too much already. Esoteric dichotomy. Thoughts on fancy watches? Do you have any? No, I usually don't ever watch at all. When the Apple Watch came out, I got one and I like it, and I wear an Apple Watch. I never wear anything else. Right now, I'm not even wearing a watch because Apple Watch is charging. But I just don't. I don't wear jewelry. Jewelry means nothing to me. I don't like wearing anything generally. The less, the better. I find it of no value, zero, zilch. So no, the idea of spending $1,000, $5,000, $25,000, $50,000 on a watch stupefies me. I couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine it. But that's true of jewelry generally. I don't wear any jewelry. My wife wears jewelry, but I don't. And I like to see the jewelry in my wife. But I have no desire to see jewelry on me. And I find it uninteresting. So it's meaningless to me. It doesn't mean it should be meaningless to you, but it's meaningless to me. Right? It doesn't mean anything to me. All right, guys. Thank you. I appreciate the support. We did phenomenally today again. Yesterday was good. Today is good. Keep up the support. Really appreciate it. If somebody gave me a Rolex, I would sell it. Literally sell it. I would have zero use for it. Christopher says Rolex would be sweet. No. I mean, you want to give me something, give me a Ferrari, but no, a Rolex watch is literally, I'd rather have a good meal at a 3-star Michelin restaurant. There are lots of things I'd rather do than have a watch. It just doesn't mean anything. If I look inside and you can see the mechanism, that's really cool. But it's also old, right? Today, everything can be electronic. What do I need all those, mechanisms? Anyway, I don't get it. I don't get it for me. I get why other people like it. I know a lot of people who collect watches, who love watches. Yeah. I use plastic spoons. I use plastic silverware. Even more. Even though, I take it out of my brain. Anyway, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate the support. I will see you all tomorrow. Positive show. Topic to be determined. Sunday, we've got John Bobbin, members only. So join us for that. The John Bobbin one will be an hour early, I think 1 p.m. East Coast time. The show tomorrow will be 2 p.m. East Coast time. There'll also be a show in Hebrew on Sunday. So Sunday I'm doing 2 shows. I will see you all then. And if not, I'll see you Monday. Bye, everybody. Have a fantastic, wonderful, value-filled weekend. Bye.